Hello friends, this is Kaustubh and in this session we'll be discussing Economic Survey 2019-20, second volume, chapter 2. This is titled Fiscal Developments. Now when we speak about fiscal developments, this is the earning and expenditure part of government as reflected by the taxation policy. Now we divide our discussion into pre-COVID and post-COVID part. When we speak about pre-COVID scenario, what does the survey say? The survey is very clear that the tax revenue, the amount of money that was to come to government through taxation, tax revenue and non-tax revenue both, was not, though it was increasing, improving, is not up to the mark as per the expectation or calculations of the government. So this was very clear that even if there was no COVID or and lockdown, the amount that government wanted to raise was still unachievable, or in short term it is believed that government could not have raised that amount of money. On the other hand, even pre-COVID scenario, the expenditure of the government is consistently rising. Now the troublesome part is the revenue expenditure is rising faster than capital expenditure. So unproductive expenditure is rising as compared to the productive expenditure, capital expenditure. So if you look at these two things, on one hand, government is not getting the amount that it has calculated, and on the other hand, it is spending much more than it is mandated as per the FRBM Act. And that too, it is spending in a manner which is unproductive, right? So in this scenario, the gap between these two, earning and expenditure, is bound to be fulfilled by what? Borrowing. And you know, by formula, borrowing is equal to fiscal deficit. So fiscal deficit of the government was not to be contained as per mandate, as per that is mandated by the FRBM Act 2003. So fiscal deficit was going to rise. Now comes in coronavirus and the consequent lockdown. Now what happens after this? One thing is for sure, after the lockdown is lifted, government is not going to earn much by taxation. You say direct or indirect. So both ways, the earning of the government is not going to be as per the calculation of Union Budget 2020. The expenditure of the government, again, the same trend of more unproductive expenditure. Now, when I say unproductive, don't take it negatively. But then presently, when you say unproductive revenue expenditure, it is what? Defense expenditure, interest payments, salaries, pensions, and then it is also subsidies. So after the lockdown is lifted, no doubt government will have to spend huge amount in sustaining the people of India, those who are unemployed, those who need help, those who are vulnerable, even bailouts to certain sectors would have to be given. Many loans have to be, waivers have to be given. So because of this, government is not going to earn, and rather government is going to spend, and more in a format which is not going to be productive in the economy. So it is not going to generate jobs. Now, in this scenario, the trend of fiscal deficit rising can be expected. Not only fiscal deficit, but revenue deficit will also boom after the lockdown is lifted. In this scenario, government will have only two options. Either it will have to borrow from domestic market, or it will have to borrow from outside. If it borrows too much from domestic market, if, why I say if? Because the reason is the way the lockdown is affecting the Indian economy, even if credit is available, and you have to see this in the context of NPAs, the overhang of NPAs and the majority of public sector banks being inefficient and the risk averse nature of Indian banking system. Now coming back, if you look at the credit scenario from this point of view, even if credit is available, liquidity is available in the economy, I don't think that after the lockdown is lifted, the credit is going to move, money is going to move in the economy very fast. So it will be very difficult for government to raise money domestically that it will need. Even if it manages to, it's going to lead to, as we know, the crowding out effect. So the credit availability for other stakeholders in the economy, especially private players, will go on reducing. So that is not something that the government would want to do. So the other option government may go for, which is borrowing from outside. This will depend on availability of credit, which is long term and cheaper. But then it also will increase the debt to GDP ratio of India, which is not very healthy. But then there is no alternative presently, clearly. Now, having understood the basic context, the bottom line is what? Government should take this opportunity of disruption in the economy to go for reforms. And because we are discussing fiscal developments, government should go for reform in taxation sector. Already GST has been brought. Government has taken wonderful steps. Like corporate taxation also, it has brought certain reforms. But indirect and direct, both ways, though we have brought GST in indirect taxation, it needs a lot of improvements. About direct taxation also, government needs to improve, bring the direct tax code and make it more broad based, because very less amount of people in India pay taxes. So reform is the buzzword. Now we look at the economic survey as it is given, and we see what are the important terms and concepts here that you need to prepare for your exam. The first thing that I will point out from the introduction given is the concept of tax expenditure. Now, what is it? These are the revenue losses attributable to provisions of tax code or laws which allow a special exclusion, exemption, or deduction from gross income, or which provide a special credit, a preferential rate of taxation, or a deferral of tax liability. To conclude, tax expenditure is all the money that government was supposed to get, but it doesn't get because of the laws, the way the laws are structured. So there are exemptions, deductions, special treatment, deferment of tax liability. This tax expenditure in India is rising rapidly, which is not a very healthy sign. Second, you need to remember the numbers what are given here. So present fiscal deficit is around 3.3%. FRBM target was 3% only. So fiscal deficit presently is 3.3. Revenue deficit was supposed to be 0 as per FRBM. It is 2.2%. It's still significant. So the concept of fiscal deficit, concept of revenue deficit, concept of primary deficit, effective revenue deficit, all this I would suggest is important from exam point of view. Page number 37. If you look at the figure 1, the deficits are given here. Though government was trying to go for fiscal consolidation, now because of this disruption, definitely the trend is going to reverse and fiscal deficit and revenue deficit may increase. Next, here government finances 2.4. So here it says that of the total borrowing, fiscal deficit is very high. The ratio of revenue deficit to fiscal deficit is all technical. Basically, the bottom line is the health of economy, even pre-COVID scenario, was not very healthy. Next, trends in receipts. I'll not go into the basics. So what are tax receipts, non-tax receipts, expenditure, capital revenue? Go for it. The basics, prepare nicely. Now, figure 2, trends in deficits are given. Here, tax revenue, page number 39. Here, GTR, this is given 11% of GDP. Tax revenue is just 11% of your GDP. And here, one positive sign is that you can clearly see on page number 40, figure 3. If you look at this figure, indirect taxes is 46% of our total revenue, tax revenue, and direct taxes is 54. This is good. This is in line with the progressive taxation system that we have. That direct tax should contribute more than indirect taxes. But here I would suggest that rather than looking too much positively to this numbers or statistics, because many times statistics do lie, they give a very false picture if the context is not properly understood. Here, this direct tax is more than indirect tax. This may be because of the flaws in GST, plus overall there is less demand in the economy and there is slowing down of economy. That is the reason maybe that the collection of GST may have gone down, right? Otherwise, I believe more or less both were same in the Indian economy till recent times. 2.8, if you look at the right side, better tax administration, widening of TDS. So they have given the reasons which may explain the improvement in tax situation in the country. Now, if you go to page number 41, again, non-debt capital research, you go through the initial lines, they have explained the concept. Here, non-debt capital research, the major item under this head is disinvestment. Now, if you look at the revenue chart of government, suddenly in the last 1 year, the government revenues have seen a very high rise in non-debt capital research. This government treats as a income revenue, but that is, you should understand, that is disinvestment, and disinvestment is not a sustainable source of income for the government. So rather than getting money from disinvestment, which is like selling the family silver, government should reform the taxation system to earn sustainably from the taxation. Next, trends in expenditure. Here, this 2.14 is very important. India's tax to GDP ratio is low. Government faces a challenge. So it is very clear that government's earning through taxation is much less than it should be. And also here, 2.15 points out that revenue expenditure is nearly 60% of total expenditure of government. So that is what initially I highlighted, that productive expenditure is capital expenditure. That should be more, but rather it is just 40% of the total expenditure of government, and 60% is revenue expenditure, which is consumption expenditure. Next, table 4, major items of revenue expenditure. This table is important because look at the heads. Now the point is, it is not only the fact that 60% or majority of the government expenditure is revenue expenditure, which is consumption expenditure, but rather the headroom available or flexibility available to the government to reduce this revenue expenditure is also extremely limited. The reason is, you look at this, you can't reduce salaries, right? You can't reduce pensions, you cannot reduce the interest payments because you have to pay the interest for the loans that have been taken till now. Defense services you can't reduce because it directly deals with your sovereignty, your security. Only head where government may have certain flexibility is subsidies. Now, look at this from the context of COVID and lockdown. Subsidies are bound to rise. So, according to this survey and this chapter, the only headroom available was to better target subsidies and reduce the unproductive use of subsidies. So, reduce the subsidies, right, of the total expenditure of government. Now, after COVID and after this lockdown, the subsidy section is, in my calculation, going to see substantial rise. And if that happens, then the revenue expenditure of the government may even increase further, right? Contrary to what was mandated by FRBM. But it is not that we are suggesting this should not be, because the point is that these are extraordinary times, and extraordinary times demand extraordinary response. So here, following the Keynesian macroeconomics, government will have to invest into productive sectors also as capital expenditure. But firstly, human life is precious. Government will have to take care of all the people who are affected because of this prolonged pandemic and the lockdown. Clear? Next, uh, 2.16, page number 43. So here again, technical numbers are given, right? Just go through that. Here, of the subsidies, three heads are generally pointed out, which are major items on the subsidy list, which is food, fertilizer, and petroleum. Petroleum subsidies may offer you certain area for reduction, but then because of COVID again, things are not normal. So it may be very difficult to reduce food subsidy, fertilizer subsidy, and even petroleum subsidy. Next, even 2.18 mentions that it is believed by this survey that capital expenditure may reduce in future, and this trend of less capital expenditure and more revenue expenditure is seen not only at the central level, it is even worse when you go to the state level. In states, if capital expenditure is 3% or 3.7%, revenue expenditure is 9 to 12%. So this is significant gap at states level. Next, one concept that is mentioned on right side, page number 43, is extra budgetary resources. You can go through the concept here, it is given. Next, transfers to states. So finance commission. So here two things I would highlight, that the latest finance commission and its terms, its recommendations, you should go through, right, and be prepared with it. And page number 44 explains that there are three ways the money from center goes to states. So it is share of states in central taxes, then finance commission grants, and then central sponsored schemes. You are very well aware that the number of schemes earlier was very high. Government brought it down, and then untied funds up to the extent of 42% were given directly to the states. Now 2.20, total transfers to states have risen. So it is a positive sign. It's a fiscal federalism, that states get more money from the relatively, right, from the collection at center. So this is good point. Table 5 is important. You can see that the three ways that we just explained. Now page number 45, if you go, fiscal outcome for 2019-20. Here the term important is effective revenue deficit that you need to prepare, apart from all other that we have highlighted. And one thing I would say, look at the point number 5. It says non-tax revenue, and look at the number 2019-20. It is 67%. Right? It's way much more than other numbers here. The only reason being disinvestment. And now you should understand that it's not a sustainable, so it's one time, right? So you shouldn't rely on that. Next, page number 46, again figure 8 highlights the same thing that we saw in the table now, non-tax revenue, sudden jump. Now, box 1, major reform taken by government in corporate taxation. This is important. I'll just explain in short. Earlier, the corporate tax was 30%, but then the effective rate which was applied to most corporates was 23% only. Where was this 7% going? This was because of exemption. So tax expenditure was very high. Now, after 2014, government has decided to reduce the taxation rate for corporates. So this comes with a condition that they have to let go of all the exemptions and deductions that they enjoy. So earlier, on paper, it was 30%, but what was received to government was approximately 23%. What government is trying to do now is, on paper, if it is 22%, it sounds much less than 30%. But then if it is 22%, government gets 22%, right? There are no exemption, deduction, and tax expenditure is to be brought down. It's a positive sign. So you go through this box one, and comparisons are given on the next page, right? And why government is reducing, if you try to think that way, why government is trying to reduce the corporate tax, which is one of the major items of government's revenue. You should understand that at present, initially I told you that post-COVID scenario, government has only two options, either to take loan from domestic or outside. The third thing can be investments. If they rise in the country, it will give us a lot of money that can be invested in productive projects and generate employment in the country. Now, these investments, I believe, are bound to increase in India after this lockdown is lifted and the global economy starts crawling back again to normalcy. The anti-China sentiment is rising throughout the world, right? It was before COVID also, and now after COVID, it is going to rise. Many businesses would want to have another location, especially in a democratic country where the systems are working properly. Look at the difference between the way India has handled this pandemic and the way China has handled. China was silent, suppressing the information, not cooperating with the global institutions or other countries, and it led to the pandemic becoming so big. On the other hand, India was the first country to have that SARC conference, teleconference, then credit 10, a huge amount of credit was promised to other countries also. We also went for the global grouping where for vaccine, we started working on it. There was transparency. Despite the political problems in the country, the Prime Minister and the government has successfully brought everyone on board, and there is across the board cooperation throughout the country, and whole country, all the federal units are working as one. So this is the beauty of the way cooperative federalism, sabka saath sabka vishwas, as the government says, it was displayed at the time of this emergency, and it is during crisis that the character of the nation is also reflected. Look at America, they value economy more than human life, right? But India, being a developing country, it is the other way around. So both examples clearly highlight that post-COVID, the role that India is bound to play at global level is going to be very, very increased or better than what China could play in the future. So if you look at this, many businesses would want to shift to India, right? And we have the manpower, we have labor required, surplus labor. So if India is able to get this investment, it will be much better. So that can also be an option for the government. The only highlight catch here is government should go for reforms. So ease of doing business. Also, I believe labor reforms is a major point which government needs to prioritize if it wants to attract this investment to the country. Now, having discussed all this, in this context, you have to see this corporate taxation reform, because we know that the businesses would shift out of China. They are going to look for other options. Now, ASEAN is the next best bet for them. Indian rate of corporate taxation was higher as compared to the most of the ASEAN countries. Now, after this reform, our rate of corporate taxation comes very close, or rather lower than most of the ASEAN countries. So this makes India a very attractive destination to foreign investment. Now, that is the context given here. Next, also, if you reduce the corporate taxation, it is believed to have a multiplier effect throughout the economy. It will generate jobs and a positive sentiment. In the words of Manmohan Singh, the former Prime Minister, he said that the animal spirits in the economy will bounce back after the economy again comes back to normalcy because of the reforms done by the government. Next, who will benefit on the next page 48? It is given in the corporate taxation and ASEAN and all that. So this is, you have to go through this all, right? Next, on the same page 2.26, it speaks about the increase in GST collections. So again, why GST collections may have improved, it is given. But then in further part of the chapter, we'll see that GST needs a lot of reforms, right? Page number 49, here it is shown that if the rates of GST are reduced, the effect doesn't remain for a very long time. So in short term, all the diagrams clearly show that in short term, the curve goes up, so revenue collection increases, and it steeps again comes down, right? So overall, it is a conclusion. You can read the line: leads to an increased GST collection in first few months, 1 to 3 months, and then impact tapers off, right? Next, page number 50, behavioral parameters. I'll not go into detail. Just go through that. Next is non-debt capital, page number 51. So disinvestment is given. Now here, the disinvestment, the box explains about ETF. Now, in the past session also we have seen, I'll just repeat it for you. When we speak about exchange traded fund, and government has recently brought in this Bharat 22 ETF or Bharat Bond ETF, you can expect this in prelims as questions. Now, what is ETF? It is like mutual fund. So ETFs are mutual funds listed and traded on stock exchanges like shares. See, mutual fund is like you invest as an investor, retail investor. If I invest into mutual fund, I cannot control what the fund is buying and or investing into, which shares or which companies. But ETF is like mutual fund, but still I can trade the whole day on stock exchange in the components or shares of ETF. And why it is related to government? Why government is using it for disinvestment? The reason is ETFs are cost effective, because see, when you say mutual fund, you need a star manager to control that or manage that fund. ETF doesn't require like that. And ETF is also believed to be flexible, as I explained, that you can anytime buy and sell on the stock if you are investing into ETF. So why is government using ETF? If you look at disinvestment, for example, CIL government disinvest. So as a retail investor, I can invest into CIL only. But then this restricts my choice. What government can do is, and now what government is planning to do is, through Bharat Bond ETF, government is trying to bring together the companies in which government has stakes and government wants to reduce that stake. So disinvestment. So if there are 5 companies which government wants to disinvest, so all these shares of government of 5 companies will be brought together as an ETF, and then this ETF, right? You can invest into this ETF, and government will reduce its shareholding, and these shares would be sold and bought on the stock exchanges very flexibly. So this is a better option for the government to go to. So it is like not putting money into one PSU, rather a basket of PSUs. Next, coming back here, so disinvestment ETF we have studied. Page number 52, major initiatives taken by DIPAM. This is Department of, it is called investment, but it is rather disinvestment. So here all terms are important for you. Strategic disinvestment, here there is one change that has been brought by ETF. See, earlier when we speak about strategic disinvestment, it means what? You reduce your ownership. Give away ownership, reduce your stakeholding. Government reduces its stakeholding below 50%. So government loses management control. However, government doesn't reduce it below 26%. So it is more than 26 but less than 50%. Why 26% is important strategic here? Day-to-day decisions can be taken by the board. So government will not have control over that. But any major decision to be taken by the board of that company would require at least 3/4 of votes. And because government has 26, so that extra 1% allows the government to block the decision if it doesn't support it. That is why it is called strategic disinvestment. But strategic disinvestment meant that you give away your ownership or managerial rights. However, what government is doing now is government is trying to reduce its stake below 50%. But then whatever government is selling, government can again make a government controlled company or entity to buy that stake. So for example, LIC. So government goes for a disinvestment in CIL, but government through LIC buys those shares. So ultimately, disinvestment has occurred, right? It is strategic disinvestment. But what has happened is the ownership still indirectly remains with the government, right? So this is what the change the government is doing here. Then the second point speaks about what I was explaining. Then ETF is given in Bharat Bond, page number 53, table 7. This is important. Here you can see major subsidies. All the major subsidies have seen a rise. The only decline was in food subsidy, but then post-COVID and lockdown, expect that too will increase. Next, The only point that is mentioned here important is focus. Therefore, the focus of government should lie on rationalization of non-committed revenue expenditure like subsidies. But then this was post-COVID, sorry, pre-COVID. Post-COVID, this line of thought may not hold. Next, page number 54, figure 9, trend in centers debt to GDP ratio. Now, again, debt to GDP ratio, if you see, this is a metric that is used to calculate the amount of debt that has been collected vis-a-vis your GDP. So, if the debt to GDP ratio rises, that is not very healthy, right? So, we should see a decline. So, if you see figure 9, you see a decline here, right? Very slow, gradual decline, but yes, there is a decline. But then again, post-COVID, this may see a rise, that government debt may increase in future. Now here what the chapter highlights is a positive trend. Government's debt has been changing nature, so short term to long term, and which is good, because if there is short term debt, you have to service that debt every now and then. That increases the cost of that debt. So government has been trying successfully to change the short term debt to long term debt, right? So that is better. Rollover risk is reduced. You can see that in figure 41, page number 55, sorry, figure 11, page number 55. The short term debt is reducing, the first two bar columns, and then 10 to 20 years and 20 years and above, it has seen an increase. So this is good. State finances, page number 55. Here again, capital expenditure is just 3.7% and revenue expenditure is very high as compared to the capital expenditure. Also, it says that in fact RBI study on state finances attributes fiscal consolidation, right, to steep decline. So see, according to FRBM, it was not only that the center has to control the fiscal deficit, it has to be controlled by the states also. Secondly, Finance Commission mandates that the state should have good balance sheet, maintain their fiscal consolidation. Then only they get the revenue from the center. That is one of the criteria. So if you look at these two things, states are forced to go for fiscal consolidation, reduce the fiscal deficit. But this the states have been able to do by reducing capital expenditure, not revenue expenditure. So which is not a very healthy sign again. So you can expect that the productive projects by the state will see a decline. Now if you see here, page number 56, 2.36. So here the financing pattern of gross fiscal deficit for states has changed. So market borrowing has increased. So obviously the states also are forced to borrow to fund their fiscal deficit, and which is not a very healthy sign. Why? The reason is when you borrow to fill the fiscal deficit, it increases your debt burden. And if the see that is okay, that if there is fiscal deficit, you have to borrow. But the fiscal deficit, if it is used for, I mean, the reason why there is deficit, if it is because of productive expenditure, expansion of your economy, then it is fine. You are borrowing, you can repay, because the productive nature of your economy will generate wealth in future, which will allow you to repay the borrowing. But if that is used for subsidies, revenue expenditure, or unproductive purposes, then this debt will balloon in the near future, and which will be problematic. Now here 2.37 is important. The debt to GDP ratio for states has risen. So this is not good. And there are three reasons. One, Uday bonds. I'll just tell you the story in short. Earlier, MSEB, the state electricity boards, were under the state. So the states were managing them ineffectively. So there was load shedding, rural electrification suffered, and the health of the MSEB was also very bad. Ultimately, center decided, because center wanted rural electrification 100%. So because MSEBs were under the states, center could not force the states, right, to make MSEBs efficient. So the only way they did, and beautifully, they brought this Uday bonds. What did center do? They forced the states to take the loans or losses, sorry, not loans, losses on the balance sheet of MSEBs, on the state balance sheet. Are you understanding? So all the losses of the MSEBs were to be shown on the state balance sheet. Now that will affect the fiscal consolidation of the states, and that will affect the revenue that they get from center. Then after these bonds were taken by the states, the debt to GDP ratio of the states would rise, definitely. But then you see rural electrification has improved, load shedding has gone down, and the health of MSEBs, right? The quality of service people are getting, electricity, the supply, it is all improved, right? So it's a very positive step. Second, farm loan waiver. That is the second reason why debt to GDP ratio of states is increasing. And third, implementation of pay commission rewards that is given here. Next, page number 57, and just before that, page number 56, come to table number 9. So here you can see revenue expenditure of the states. It is given in bracket 9.4. Capital expenditure is 3.7. So you can see the difference between the two, which is unhealthy. Page number 57, figure 13, very important, major deficit and debt indicators of state. You can clearly see that the fiscal deficit, revenue deficit, and debt to GDP ratio. So debt to GDP ratio is skyrocketing, it is increasing. Now, the other numbers that are given below on page number 57, they are all pre-COVID scenario, which is not very relevant after the COVID and lockdown. Page number 58, so the overall outlook. So here, even before COVID, the outlook given here is negative, or rather very cautious. So it's kind of cautious optimism, which says that only reforms are a way forward, and 2021, this financial year, was anyway supposed to see a stress on the state balance sheets, or I mean balance sheet of governments overall, and fiscal deficit was expected to rise. So now after the COVID and the lockdown, I am telling you the fiscal deficit will balloon, the revenue deficit also rise, government borrowings will rise, debt to GDP ratio may rise, and the states will find it very difficult to carry on their business. So here, what is the way of counter-cyclical fiscal policy as suggested by John Maynard Keynes? But again, John Maynard Keynes says that government should spend, it should not care about the fiscal deficit when the economy is supposed to go in recession. But he says that this deficit is on account of the money that was spent productively by the government, right? So that is very important. Other thing, they have said that the rationalization of subsidies, but then again after COVID, rationalization in short term, I believe, is difficult. Finance Commission, I have already said, and two things again will also decide the nature of government finances after this lockdown is over. One thing is the geopolitics overall, the oil prices, geopolitics and all this, and other thing can be China. See, China is one of the leading trade partners of India, and then anti-China sentiment and the movement of foreign capital, all this will create a situation which is very uncertain, but maybe positively skewed towards India. So this is all about this chapter. We'll just see the annex, page number 60. I'll just highlight the keywords that are important in this chapter. You have to prepare, see the concept of inverted duty structure. So it is believed that in India, importing finished good is cheaper than importing raw material. This was true. So because of this, processing in India was difficult, costly, and it discouraged the domestic manufacturing. So here, this survey says that most of the anomalies have been taken care of. Now, if there are inverted duty structure, that is just because of foreign, free trade agreements or international trade agreements. So this is one thing that you need to note. Second, we have already said about Make in India. So rather than Make in India, survey part 1 says it should be assemble in India for the world. So that is, and especially electronic goods. Next, leather industry. So we need to invest into sectors which are labor intensive, like textiles, leather, and so on. Next, certain changes have been made in GST that are given in point B. So page number 61 top. Also criticisms of GST are mentioned here. Go through that. That is important. What government has done, reforms in indirect taxation that are mentioned there. Just go through the list. Next, I believe that page number 62.5 is important. Sabka Vishwas, so legacy dispute settlement scheme. Now here I would like to highlight one thing. If you take all the cases that are present in Supreme Court and High Court, economic cases, more than 50% litigant, in more than 50% of cases, one of the litigant is government. This projects of government in very negative light. Because see, government makes the laws, government makes rules, guidelines, regulations, and government is the implementing agency. When you make laws, why do you need to file cases on people? This means your drafting is problematic, your laws have loopholes, and why people put cases on you? So government puts cases on people, people put cases on government. And this is not just bad drafting of laws or the loopholes which are present in laws. There are other reasons also. Many times intentions of government need to be studied properly. Why I say so? You must be aware of the Vodafone Hutchison case. So Hutch case. In that case also, it was government went to amend the Income Tax Act 1961 retrospectively and then applied it to Vodafone, dragged Vodafone to Supreme Court, then Vodafone dragged Indian government to international arbitration where we lost, all this could have been prevented. So no investor ever likes to invest into an economy which is unpredictable, right? So predictability. See, this is applicable to GST also. GST, every now and then the GST council is sitting together and they decide that this commodity should be reduced, the tax should be reduced, it should be exempted or included in GST. Why? Right? You should have one nation, one tax. It should be uniformly applicable, and minimum exemptions, minimum deductions, minimum slabs, minimum confusion. So that is something that needs to be done by the government. Uh, Also changing this every now and then not only gives instability but also gives a very wrong message to investors as well as the consumers in the market. Next, the reforms are mentioned. You go through that. Page number 63, government is trying to promote electric vehicles. The points given are given on page number 63. Page number 64, again, the four slabs are given. Here 64 mentions about MSMEs. This is one major area that you need to prepare. MSMEs, very important for mains especially. Even prelims you can get a question. Page number 65, corporate taxation, it is given. Here the keyword on last line is double taxation avoidance agreement, very important. Prepare this for prelims. Page number 66, interchangeability of PAN and Aadhaar is mentioned. This is also important. Then International Financial Services Center, you prepare where they are located in India, what are its functions and how it is going to help Indian economy. Page number 61, NPS subscriber, certain changes were done, that is important. And the keyword is NCLT, National Companies Law Tribunal, established under Companies Act 2013. Very important. Page number 68, buyback of shares. Prepare this concept nicely because government is using buyback as a technique for disinvestment also. And last important point, advance pricing agreement is mentioned here in one of the points. That also you need to prepare. Lastly, page number 70, 70. Here there are two things that are important on the prescribed electronic modes, just QR codes, BHIMAP and all, whatever new has been done by government, just go through that. And document identification number, this is the new concept that has been brought, DIN. So this is all from my side about chapter 2 of economic survey. I request you to subscribe to this channel, comment if you have doubts. I'll be very happy to get back to you, right? Stay healthy, stay safe and study hard. Thank you.